What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast, episode number 19. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter at @A_Cuesta30, and find the Sports Opinions Twitter at SportsOpinion30. And, of course, again, you're listening to this. If you are, thank you. You're listening via YouTube. Go ahead, click subscribe if you haven't already, because I have great guests coming every week, like the man that I have joining me today. You've heard him before. We had a great podcast last time. We're going to have another great podcast this time because it's a special podcast. It is an NBA playoff preview with the playoffs right around the corner. Last time I talked to him, he was doing some different stuff, so he switched up where he's writing, but he's always writing. Mr. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, senior columnist over now at Basketball Society, a great website about basketball for a man that knows a lot about basketball. And also the creator of the Scoop B Pop Radio podcast, blending hip-hop, blending just celebrities, basketball, anything you want on that podcast. Great variety of it. What up, Scoop?
Nothing, man. What's going on?
Nothing. Always having a good time, especially when you come on the podcast. You know, knowledge gets dropped and people get educated, and I sure as hell get educated, especially about basketball.
We love it. Last time I was on, we talked about Randy Jefferson and the Knicks and myriad of other things, and it's no longer the regular season, so we got to talk to the top 8 on both sides. I'm ready.
Oh, yeah. And, did you just see that Adam Silver again said that he's really interested in the 1 through 16 format? What do you think? Do you think it's something they should just say, screw it, let's do the 1 through 16? Are you a fan of that?
Well, you know that I wrote about it actually today. Adam Silver talking about the 1 through 16 process, and he acknowledged on Friday that the league lottery form is in place for next season. But I definitely have heard about it, and he had a meeting with the owners at the Board of Governors meeting in Manhattan on Friday. He talked about tanking. And he said he recognized that the goal was to put the best competition on the floor, and tanking reforms and 1 through 16 are all things that the Board of Governors are discussing, and we'll see what happens. But he touched on a number of NBA topics on Friday. Play-in game to determine the playoff berth in the wake of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Denver Nuggets game.
Which was a hell of a game, by the way. That is the way you want to end the season, right there, man.
Yeah, man. That was like the one playoff game that you play before you finish, your bracket, and that's what it felt like. But I'm in favor of some type of reform. But I'm gonna tell you, I was having this conversation with somebody on Twitter today. Just the way that the playoffs are set up, I'm in favor of a top, and I wrote about this today. Adam Silver in the NBA doing something like the top 16 players, irrespective of conferences, is playing out in one game, and then you have a national championship game. It's one game, but I also missed the best 3 out of 5 in the NBA's first round. So there's a lot to sort through. But you look at injuries. You look at guys like Steph Curry and Joel Embiid, and Kyrie Irving, who's been injured. Joel will be back and Steph will be back, but Kyrie Irving had a lot to prove this season, and ended up having an infection in his knee, and won't be able to carry and lead the Celtics team. So it'll just be interesting to see how they reform it. And basketball is an 11-month game. Even it's being played even when the season is over. So a lot of wear and tear on bodies.
Now, we all know that the best of 5 is never coming back, even though I loved it, but it's all about money. The longer the playoffs, the more those sponsors love it. The networks have a deal. I don't think we're ever getting the best of 5 back. I love the pressure it put on teams to perform, but we ain't going to see that again. And before we continue, Scoop, we never plugged you. So I'm doing it for you because people need to know where to find you. You can find Scoop on Twitter at ScoopB. Definitely go on ScoopBRadio.com to listen to the Scoopy Radio podcast. And Instagram, are you at ScoopB there as well?
Scoop_B on Instagram.
Scoop_B on Instagram. And Instagram, listen, you guys will enjoy his Instagram because he's not just pushing all of his articles. You'll get to see the pictures of all of his adventures. And Scoop is always moving. Scoop is always moving. He's at Fashion Week, and that one time, then he's at the All-Star game, and then he's just everywhere. He's meeting different people, doing a lot of fun stuff. So you definitely want to follow him on Instagram.
It'd be the best fun you have in your life. Make sure to follow us on Snapchat as well, Scoop_B. Subscribe to us, Scoopy Radio on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app, and ScoopyRadio.com.
There you go. So, yeah, definitely go follow Scoop. Fun follow. I follow him on everything. So, I'm not just talking right here. This is what we do. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to have some fun. We are going to start off. So what we're going to do here, we're going to run down the teams that are playing each other. We're going to talk about each team. We're going to talk about the matchup. Then we're going to give predictions. But we're not going to stop at the first round because Scoop's a busy man, and I can't hog him every single time the rounds switch as much as I would love to. So we are going to put it all out here. We are going to jump, and we are going to give our full predictions. So it's going to be out there on the ether. So if one of us is dead wrong or dead right, the world will know, Scoop. So let's do this. We're starting off on the East because I have East Coast bias because I'm a Nets fan and I live on the East Coast. So we're going to start off first matchup. The Toronto Raptors versus the Washington Wizards. Scoop, who do you like coming out of this and why?
I didn't expect the Wizards to be an AFC. I've been around the Wizards for parts of the season. And I think the biggest hurdle for them was the John Wall injury versus when John Wall came back and how they were able to gel. When John Wall was out, it was Bradley Beal's team. You saw early in the season Bradley Beal score a bunch of, I think it was a game against Portland. He kind of solidified himself an NBA All-Star. I think that, I think he found his niche and his confidence. But they're not the team that kind of coast on and off. I spoke to Bradley Beal in February out in LA during All-Star weekend, and basically he said his confidence is there. John Wall, his confidence is always there, but the injuries is what's hurt him. But one thing about the Toronto Raptors and the Eastern Conference, other than the Boston Celtics, the Raptors have pretty much been the most consistent this season, and I think they don't get enough credit for how solid they really are. DeMar DeRozan has found his outside jumper. Kyle Lowry has been leading it quietly. And I think that more than anything, they've been, other than the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference, they've had trouble with the Cavaliers this season. But I do think that this Raptors-Wizards matchup is a matchup of two teams that both have a glut of talent. But I think it's going to be a war, and I think the Raptors take this series.
How many games? What is it going to take for the Raptors to get there? Are they going to go 7? Is this going to be a nice long one early?
It's going to be Raptors in 6.
Raptors in 6. Now, this, we're starting off nice and early with the disagreements. See, for me, everything that you said is completely true, but I think you forgot to lead out that this Toronto team has been a regular season team over, I want to say, since both Lowry and DeRozan came out and have become bona fide superstars, because there's no shading that they are both bona fide superstars. They're talented players, some of the best at their positions in the league. But when it comes playoff times, both of them shrink. And, you can point at certain games where, DeRozan will go off for 30 in a game in a series. Lowry will carry a team with 20 and 10. But they don't do it enough. They don't do it like LeBron, like Curry, like Durant, like Westbrook, where they're going to bring it and they're going to average 25 a game and put a team on their back. So that is what scares me about the Toronto Raptors. And that's exactly why I like Bradley Beal and John Wall in the playoffs more than I like DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. And you look at the supporting cast, both of them have had problems finding their true number 3 to make a big 3. You look at, especially the Wizards, Kelly Oubre never stepped up. Otto Porter never stepped up. Gortat really didn't live up to his potential. He was definitely mentioned as a big 3 for a long time. So I look at it, but in terms of the 2v2 with top 2 on each team, I just like John Wall and Bradley Beal in the playoffs especially better than Lowry and DeRozan. So I'm saying Washington in 6.
Did you mention Otto Porter?
I did mention Otto Porter and that he just hasn't, listen, I'm a Nets fan. I wanted the Nets to get Otto Porter. but hasn't been the third. He was supposed to be the third member of the big three. Like, that was his role to take, and he's just never taken that by the horns. So
I think, Otto Porter, I believe that the Wizards matched the Nets
offer sheet. Yes, they did.
A 24-year-old guy out of Georgetown. At third pick, I forget that he was the third pick in the 2000. I believe it was 2013 NBA draft.
I believe it was that. He still has room to grow, but in terms of basketball time and how small windows are, I think the Wizards wanted that growth now.
But he's shooting 50% this season, though, man. And I think that when you're playing a Toronto team, you have to have strong, solid shooting. And the other thing is, you talk about how he's not been that guy. Every year he's improved statistically, averaging 14.7 points per game this season, about a point and a half above what he averaged last year. I think when you look at guys like Otto Porter, particularly, he reminds me of today's. Like, you looked at Villanova, you saw a lot of Otto Porters on that team.
Oh, well, speaking of Villanova, Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's a Villanova product. And you just see this type of ball.
Sure. But I'm talking more like these 6'8", 200-pound, the 2, 3, 4 guys that can spread the floor. Shooting is the name of the game. And when Otto Porter is on, he's on.
Oh, yeah. He's a definite 3-and-D guy because he does play good defense, too. Otto Porter plays... He's long, like you said. You just gave all of his stats. He's long. He's athletic, and he doesn't shy away from competition at all. And and Scoop, you're proving my point. That's why I'm thinking Washington is going to show up, and hopefully it's an Otto Porter breakout for this playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I just think that I think that when it's all said and done, though, I think the Raptors have been very overlooked and disrespected. In my opinion, I think the Raptors to the Eastern Conference are what the Houston Rockets are in the Western Conference. I think people see them winning regular in-season games and don't think that they can compete on the grand stage. We'll see what happens with that matchup. We agree to disagree on the board first.
Absolutely.
I got Washington. I got Toronto.
We do. We're going to move on to the next matchup, which I don't think we're going to disagree, but who knows? We're going to go, it's Cleveland, the Cavs, LeBron James. A lot of people call him the Cleveland LeBrons. It's no joke. The guy found father time. He's playing some of his best basketball. And we seem to say that every single year around this time. But he played 82 straight games. There's a lot of young guys that don't do that. Talk to Joel Embiid, who I love Joel Embiid. But talk to Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid don't play no back-to-back games. And they're playing the Indiana Pacers. What's up?
The masked man, Joel Embiid.
Oh yeah, Phantom. Honestly, I could honestly see him even when it's healed, just cutting the mask in half and literally just playing like Phantom of the Opera. That's the type of dude that Joel Embiid is. The dude just brings so much fun to the game again. I really like watching him play.
Me too.
But we will talk about him some more. But we're gonna go back. Cleveland versus Indiana. Cleveland's a 4 seed, Indy's a 5 seed. Normally they're good close matches. I don't see this being a good close match. Who do you got in this one?
Cleveland at 5. I think that you look at the unexpected that was the Pacers this season, a team in the offseason that shipped Paul George to the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo, an all-star this season for the Pacers, has been playing just out of his mind. And I think that the one thing about the Pacers that I found to be really encouraging this season is the fact that basically the Pacers, the coach was gone. He gets fired this season.
Yep.
And you pretty much built your team around Lance Stevenson, who signed, I believe, at either this season or end of last season. I
think it was the end of last season, and he got going. Like, I think they picked him up off the scrap heap at the end of last season when he was just floundering, and he's comfortable in Indiana. That man likes Indiana.
Mm-hmm. But I also think one of the most underrated moves that they did in the offseason was signing Bojan Bogdanovic.
Oh, yeah.
Former Net.
Yep, and that guy can shoot the lights out. If you're talking about the new NBA game, shooting threes. When Bojan's on, he's one of the best three-point shooters in the game.
Mm-hmm. So, I look at that team. That team represents shooters. You have Bojan on that team. You have Lance Stevenson defensively. Of course, you're going to see a matchup again of Lance versus LeBron. And, but Miles Turner, I really expect to have a good playoff series. But I don't think the Pacers will win. But also you look at Al Jefferson and Trevor Booker, former net journeyman, is there. But that team is building the image of Victor Oladipo, and Miles Turner is a good addition as well, and Lance Stevenson. That's their big three. But ultimately, the Cavs will go in, and the name of the game for them right now is really preservation. You've seen in playoffs past where the Cavs take care of the ball early and take advantage of what they need. That they'll be able to kind of preserve themselves for the playoffs. But I think the thing for the Cavs that I am a little concerned about, I'm concerned about the defensive matchup. And I think that's where somebody like George Hill comes in. If he's going to start, he's going to come off the bench. But George Hill was brought into Cleveland to be the guy that Darren Williams was supposed to be last season.
Don't talk about D-Will. Don't talk about that man's, all right?
But defensively, I think George Hill will make his bread and butter. A former Pacer himself, a former member of the San Antonio Spurs, defensively locking his defensive assignment will be the lockdown. Victor Oladipo. But I think Kyle Korver, shooting-wise, is the most consistent Cavs outside of the James this season. And, it'll be interesting to watch. They're both young teams, but, I'm excited to see this matchup, but I have Cavs in 5.
Yeah, we agree right there with the exact. I say Cavs in 5 as well. I just think that they overmatch a lot of people because of number 23. Victor Oladipo has played very well. He's had a coming-out year. He's never been the guy that's lived up to the expectations of carrying a team. And this year on Indiana, he really stepped up. He made it his team, and he's played really well. Lance Stevenson, he's a goofball, but he can ball, and he really loves Indiana, like I said. For some reason, you put him there, he plays well. But ultimately, I think LeBron is too much. You mentioned George Hill. I could see George Hill making a lot of clutch shots down the road. They're not asking him to be a scorer all the time. They're, like you said, they're asking him to match up. You spend a lot of energy playing defense. But I also think that he is a guy that can score. He can shoot threes. He could score when necessary. So I wouldn't be surprised if George Hill wins him a game or two. And a guy you didn't mention, Jordan Clarkson. I really like Jordan Clarkson. I think he's going to be able to give you at least 10 to 14 and anywhere from 5 to 6 assists every single game. And that'll be big just to take some of the onus off of LeBron and let LeBron play off the ball every once in a while. Or when LeBron's out of the game, be comfortable with someone running the point. So,
for sure. And I also think Rodney Hood is a guy that's going to help them deep in the playoffs. But in this first matchup, I think he's going to be getting acclimated. I think in the grand scheme of things, I think Rodney Hood is going to serve the purpose as the scoring team that J.R. Smith should be consistently, if not always. And I also think Kevin Love in the corner is going to be helpful. And I think Jordan Clarkson is that definitely. You saw that after trading deadline was definitely beneficial for LeBron and company. And their national matchup against the Boston Celtics in February. So I definitely think that it'll be a fun matchup to see the young Pacers team and the a little bit older Cleveland Cavaliers team.
Absolutely. So we both agree on that. Cleveland in 5. We're going to roll on to the team that, they have a guy that I like to call, we actually both talked about this guy being potentially LeBron light if he develops a jumper. Mr. Ben Simmons, leading the Philadelphia 76ers to the number 3 seed, just passing Cleveland at the end of the season. Markelle Fultz, after all the talk of him with his shooting troubles, looks just fine to me. Got a triple-double before the season ended. Joel Embiid will come back. He's the man in the mask right now, but he will come back. They have their first-round matchup against the Miami Heat, who is no pushover. They're playing good ball. Dwayne Wade went home. He hit a spark with that team. Goran Dragic, Sam Whiteside. They're a good basketball team. How do you feel? What do you think in that matchup? I think it's going to be a pretty good one.
I think Dwayne Wade has had the best 2 years of his life. Leaving Miami leaving Miami and not getting the money he thought he deserved, and going to Chicago and leading the Bulls to a playoff matchup last season against the Boston Celtics. Caught a little bit of Isaiah Thomas in Boston in Game 4 in Chicago, Madison last year. It was cool. Side note, Chance the Rapper was there, Derrick Rose was there, got a standing ovation, Scottie Pippen as well as Howard Green. It was pretty cool to see. But as it relates to Dwayne Wade, it was cool to see him kind of get, play in that Chicago Bulls system and then come to Cleveland with LeBron and play with LeBron for a second time. But ultimately, Dwayne Wade was able to supplant, or rather circumvent, what was going on in Cleveland at the time, and head back to Miami where he maintains a home and be in a familiar place. Listen, what I like about the Miami Heat team this year is, Deion Waiters wasn't really himself this season, but Wayne Ellington has stepped up this season. Goran Dragic has played like Goran Dragic. And defensively, his light side is playing well. But what I like about that team is that quietly they had a great season, and you actually questioned whether or not they would go to the playoffs. But when you look at the standings early in the season, you had teams like the Detroit Pistons who had a hot star behind the player, Tobias Harris, that kind of fell. The Bulls didn't make it this season. And then also the Atlanta Hawks were terrible. So you get the Charlotte Hornets weren't doing well. So, the Miami Heat had to fill in somewhere. And, when it comes to the Miami Heat matchup with the Philadelphia 76ers, I think that's where folks can be a little bit nervous, because I don't think it's going to be straight up Philly winning this easily. I think Philly has been great to watch in the regular season, and people have trusted the process. And I think Philly grows early in the season, maybe 2 years ahead. But in this Miami Heat matchup, I'm a little nervous. When I look at the seedings of the Philadelphia 76ers, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are kicking themselves because of the 2 games they lost this season. Particularly last week when they played. That was a game they should have won, but they ran out of gas on the back-to-back. Really and truly, Cleveland should be playing against Miami right now. And I think that Miami, as young as they are, they have some veterans who have had playoff experience. I get very nervous around teams that play well and don't have any playoff experience, and I'm actually going to pick the Miami Heat over the Philadelphia 76ers first round in 5 games.
Miami in 5. There it is. That is the first upset, and it's a true upset, especially for Philadelphia fans. And coming out of the East. Now, another disagreement. I agree that this is going to be a hell of a series, but I agree it'll be a great series for 4 games. I think Philly's going to sweep, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think they're going to battle, but I just think you talk about the youth versus experience. I just think the athleticism and the type of guy that Ben Simmons is, the type of guy Joel Embiid is. I don't know much about Fultz, but if he comes to play, I do know a lot about Dario Saric, who's another guy who's a stone-faced stud of that team that doesn't get the credit he deserves. You put those guys together, I don't think the lights are going to be too big for Ben Simmons. He doesn't let it get to him. And he's not a guy that's relying on a 3-point stroke to get good. He's a guy that takes it to the hole, that makes his other teammates better. Joel Embiid is a beast. I just don't see Miami being able to match up properly against this young Philadelphia team who plays like a veteran squad. They don't play young. They don't just go run and chuck. They play basketball. They move the ball around. They find the best guy. They make great shots. So that's why I'm saying Philly in 4, but it's not going to be a blowout in 4. It's 4 really tough games that get them to the next round.
I look at experience, and I look at the Sixers on paper. J.J. Redick has had playoff experience. Marco Bellinelli has had playoff experience. Ersan Ilyasova has had playoff experience. If I'm not, Amir Johnson has had playoff experience. Keith Bogans is not on that team. He's an assistant coach or head coach for the Westchester Knicks, but under contract. I think it's been a great story for Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia area, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, Villanova being a mainline team, but plays their basketball games in South Philly at the Wells Fargo Center. So they are Philly. It's been great for Philly, but I do think that championship bubble is going to burst a little bit. We're going to agree to disagree. I think the Miami Heat have veteran experience, and I think everybody is drinking the Philadelphia Kool-Aid right now based upon the regular season success that they have, and I think that the reality is going to set in come playoff time.
Hear that, Philly fans? Scoop is not trusting the process anymore. Sliding on to the next matchup. The limping Boston Celtics, the number 2 seed, playing Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks. I think this is a real big trap game. I'm going to let you go with it. How do you feel about this game? Who's winning?
Well, I do have Milwaukee, but for not the reasons that everybody thinks, minus the Celtics and their injury woes, Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving. But I look at the Milwaukee Bucks team. The firing of Jason Kidd in January gave them a spark. Giannis Antetokounmpo was their superstar, Mr. 60 Minutes himself. But it's not just the Milwaukee Bucks that of their firing, or excuse me, it's not just the Milwaukee Bucks' firing of Jason Kidd that led the spark. The addition of Brandon Jennings has been great. The veteran leadership of Jason Terry. And honestly, Jabari Parker coming back has been pretty encouraging for that team. But I like the fact that they're playing great basketball. The head coach, former Nets assistant Joe Prunty. But I like the fact that Milwaukee is a 7th seed and has something to prove, because I think they've been playing beneath their privilege for a few years now. I consider the Milwaukee Bucks the East Coast version of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And you saw the Timberwolves being a young team, not playing above their privilege. And I think, with a confidence boost of Kyrie Irving being out, that's great. But I think that the Bucks, this is going to be a tune-up matchup for moving on to the later rounds, because I think that the Bucks are that team that can turn up, because they have the blend of both old and young. And I think that shooting has been at a premium for them this season. I think, for a team that was looking outside the playoff picture earlier this season to come back and rally, I think that they've been pretty steady versus the Celtics that have had something to prove. And, they went out of gas. What I'm impressed with the Celtics is, even after Gordon Hayward got out and Kyrie led them and he ended up being injured, he had guys that have stepped up, primarily Jaylen Brown. And you kind of saw Jaylen Brown, playing like that in the playoff last year. So I don't think it's going to be an easy matchup like people think, with Kyrie Irving being gone. But I expect the play of not just Jaylen Brown, but the play of Jason Tatum as a rookie. I think Jason Tatum has impressed me a lot this season. I also think that Greg Monroe is going to play well for the Celtics, primarily because he knows that Buck system. And I think that guys like Marcus Morris are also going to step it up. But I think this series is going to be more exciting than the Cavaliers and Indiana Pacers series.
Absolutely. How many games is Milwaukee winning it in?
6.
We agree there that Milwaukee's going to win, and I think it's going to be probably the best series of the first round, to be quite honest. I have Milwaukee in 7, and I think something to prove is probably going to be the theme of this one, and I think it goes on both sides, because last year the Giannis Antetokounmpo hype was real. He was the heir apparent to the best player in the league. He was ready to step up and take the mantle when LeBron was done, doing everything right, stepping up. And this year, it's Ben Simmons. It's other people. It's Donovan Mitchell. It's a lot of other players that are taking the spotlight. And Giannis Antetokounmpo playing good ball, but, like you said, a little bit disappointing in the regular season. Only a 7 seed in the perceived weak East. So he's over there with the chip on his shoulder, like, man, I got to show out that I'm still one of the top 3 players in this league, bar none. So I think he's on that side trying to prove his thing. But also, like you mentioned, with Kyrie and Hayward down, everyone is saying Boston's done. They're done. They're going to get destroyed. And you mentioned dudes like Jaylen Brown. He got pride. Jason Tatum has balled out this year, and I think he's, very impressive. But a guy like Marcus Smart, who doesn't really get a lot of credit, but he's a glue guy on that team. And I think he's more of a leader than people think. So even with Kyrie gone, the leadership is still there. It is still established. So I think Boston plays really well. I see Milwaukee in 7, and I think we're going to have a hell of a series. Yep, there you go. Summed it up. So we're going to move on to the West now, the first round games. We got number 1 seed Houston against the aforementioned number 8 seed Minnesota T-Wolves. Who you got going there, Scoop?
I had the Houston Rockets, but I'm ticked that the Wolves weren't higher because the Wolves were balling earlier this season, and I feel like after the All-Star break, it just went up and down. But I think one of the reasons why the Wolves play went up and down was because when their seeding was wacky, was because of the surge of the Portland Trailblazers in the Western Conference. They just disrupted everything, and also the San Antonio Spurs having an up and down season, which we'll talk about later. But as far as, and also the Utah Jazz being successful this season. But as it relates to the Rockets, I mean, a team that got Chris Paul at their point guard, and James Harden is still a scoring machine and arguably one of the top 2 players in the NBA this season at his position and overall. I think that it's going to be offense versus defense, but I think ultimately James Harden is going to play well, and I think Karl Anthony Towns is going to play well. But I ultimately think, even though it's the Western Conference, I still think that's going to be a battle. And I ultimately see the Rockets in 6 games.
I completely agree. I actually had Houston in 6 as well. And, you mentioned, the disappointing nature and the surge of other teams. And if you weren't following all season, I don't think you really understand what Scoop is talking about. From 8 through 3, the Rockets and the Warriors are on their own. But 8 through 3 are separated by 2 games in the loss column. The Wolves are 47-35, where number 3 seed Trailblazers are 49-33. That is how tight the Western Conference was coming down to it, where, like we mentioned before, there was a legitimate playing game between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets at the end of the regular season. It wasn't officially that, but that's what it was for Game 82. Whoever scheduled that's getting a raise. But I think Houston's gonna win it in 6 as well. I think Minnesota is a really good team. I think, they very well could have been the 3 seed if, like you said, the Trailblazers didn't surge. If, Russell Westbrook wasn't doing Russell Westbrook things, averaging a second season in a row of triple doubles. Utah Jazz weren't playing well. There was a lot of things that just separated them by fractions. I think Jimmy Butler is an absolute bona fide stud. He's unbelievable. Karl Anthony Towns continues to get better in front of our eyes. But the Rockets did what the Rockets did for a reason. Nobody can score on the same clip as them this year. The Warriors are all banged up. They're probably the only other team that keeps up with them in terms of scoring. But the Rockets just did their thing. James Harden is continuing to get better in every facet of his game. He's continuing to actually try on defense every once in a while, which is all the difference. And that's all Chris Paul probably demanding it out of everyone, because I don't think Chris Paul's afraid of anyone, that man. And also the rise of Clint Capella. When they talk about a big 3 with the Rockets now, it used to, coming in, it was CP3 and Harden. And then Clint Capella this year said, nah, I'm in that. And he has balled out, and he's a legitimate player that everyone needs to watch out for. So I agree with you, Houston in 6, but it's going to be a fun series to watch because Minnesota's not going to go down quietly.
Oh, sure. And I think when you talk about Clint Capella, I should have talked about that more. Clint Capella has broken some records this season. The Swiss guy is definitely, I believe he posted I wrote about this last week, actually. I spoke to Ronnie 2K, who is the face of NBA 2K.
Yes, he is.
Talking about the ratings of just different players, and he said the 3 people who had drastic ratings this season, their ratings have gone up in the game, have been Donovan Mitchell, who we'll talk about in a minute, Victor Oladipo of the Pacers, and Clint Capella of the Houston Rockets. And one thing about Clint Capella, this season, he became the youngest Rocket since Hakeem Olajuwon to have at least 23 points and 25 rebounds in a game. Did you know that?
No, I did. I know he's balled out, but, and to be mentioned with the Dream, that's great company, and that's the company you want to be in if you're a big.
And he did it on Valentine's Day, 1985, Hakeem, and he tallied 30 points and 25 rebounds. And then on Christmas, he actually, Clint Capella had by Christmas, he had already had 16 double-doubles in 28 games, and that ranked first in the NBA. He also ranked first in the NBA field goal percentage. So Clint Capella is a guy that's really raised his game this season. And I also think Ryan Anderson, when healthy, can contribute greatly, and as well as Trevor Ariza. Like, I think that's the thing about the Rockets. I think they're very stacked at many different positions. And it's not just James Harden and Chris Paul. I think people have that confused. It's a collaborative effort, and I'm impressed with that. I'm impressed with the Rockets' play this season, because it's not just scoring and defensive stops that Chris Paul has had. It's frustrated people like Damian Lillard, and they've just played well. But the playoffs is a new game, and those guys together have to prove to me that they're worthy. And even with the Warriors team being what they are, the Warriors team together have been playoff tested. I think they won me over in the finals last year because of the coming out party that Kevin Durant had. But we didn't get to the Warriors yet, so Rockets and 6 over the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that's going to be a good series.
Hell yeah. And before we move on, I got to give Ryan Anderson a shout out, because that dude has been getting the Brook Lopez treatment in terms of, it seems every year it's Ryan Anderson's going to be a part of this package. Ryan Anderson's going to be a part of that package. And as much as it's a compliment that you're a guy that teams are going to want, at the same time, he just continues to do him. A lot of players talk about, I don't let it faze me. I don't let it faze me. And that's a lot of talk from a lot of guys, because we know what lets it faze them. Ryan Anderson's a guy that obviously he doesn't let the chatter faze him. He is every single package that possibly could be included for a big-time player going to Houston. His name's floated there. So I just got to give a big ups to Ryan Anderson. You keep doing you.
Right, and I agree. Former Orlando Magic, former Pelican. And I just want to add this. I talked about defensively. I want to quantify that. The Houston Rockets ranked top 10 in the NBA this season in terms of defensive efficiency. I think a lot of times people just think they're a scoring team. They're top 10 in defensive efficiency. And they have a lot to prove this season. And, it'll be interesting.
Absolutely. So going on to our next matchup, Oklahoma City Thunder, number 4 seed versus number 5 seed Utah Jazz, which you mentioned. We talked about Donovan Mitchell already. He's my rookie of the year. I know there's been a little bit of jabber-jawing back between him and Ben Simmons, where I kind of lean on the Donovan Mitchell side. I know there's the rule protecting, the fact that he didn't play a game. But Ben Simmons, you got paid, number 1. You got to hang out at the facility with professional trainers, professional eating plan, professional lifting plan. For me, Ben Simmons is a 2-year pro. I get it, he didn't step on the floor. But if we're looking at a true rookie of the year, I think Donovan Mitchell's the true rookie of the year. But OKC is OKC. That's who they're running into. Who do you got?
Well, I just want to piggyback off of Donovan Mitchell. I actually had my buddy Eric Woodyard, first-year writer out of Flint, Michigan. He's now the beat writer for the Utah Jazz for the Desert News. And I stupidly, he told me to pick up Donovan Mitchell on my fantasy basketball team back in November, and I did it. The guy has just been amazing. A slam dunk champion, averaged about 20 points and shaded under 4 rebounds, 4 assists a game. But he surpassed, I don't know if you knew this, he surpassed Utah Jazz legend Karl Malone in January by scoring 20-plus points a game during a rookie season. And he had his 19th 20-plus point game by January. And I think about Donovan Mitchell, when you talk about the whole rookie thing is, I think Ben Simmons did the redshirt rookie year, just like Blake Griffin did. And I believe that Ben Simmons is a great player, but everybody knew he was going to be good coming out of college, and many knew did, but people questioned the fact that his college didn't make it to tournament. Sure, he has going out on Charles Barkley has been very vocal about that. But
I know I did. I admit that I was wrong. I knocked Ben Simmons for not leading LSU to a tournament. I'm completely wrong about the man.
Yeah, and I think that this whole one and done thing, I think the players take it seriously, but not so seriously because they don't want to get hurt. But I think for Ben Simmons, he's been playing lights out. I have questions about his jumper, but I think when I look at Ben Simmons and the help that he's had this season, Donovan Mitchell didn't necessarily have the help. And I'm gonna tell you something: the Ben Simmons Donovan Mitchell comparison reminds me so much of LeBron being the first pick in the 2003 draft and Dwayne Wade exceeding expectations of what people thought he would be.
Without a doubt. Same body types, too.
Donovan Mitchell had a lot of on-court experience right away, and nobody expected him. Quinn Snyder, in my opinion, should be the NBA's Coach of the Year this season, and Donovan Mitchell should be the Rookie of the Year because nobody expected him to do as well as he did, and he's crushed so many records in just his rookie season. I think he's so very mature for his age, particularly because his father works for the New York Mets, and he had experience in how to be a professional. He also went to a good school in Louisville. But to go back to your initial question about Oklahoma City, we didn't even touch that. I believe that the Oklahoma City Thunder have a lot to prove this season. Russell Westbrook averaged another triple-double for the season. Also, Paul George has something to prove. Will he sign with OKC? Will he go to the hometown Los Angeles Lakers? I don't think on the Philadelphia 76ers is an option next season, by the way. But I will say to you, Carmelo Anthony has a lot to prove. He won the argument. New York wanted him out. He left, and he's in the playoffs, and the Knicks are not. Jeff Hornacek is out. So, obviously Carmelo benefited from Russell Westbrook being his point guard, but I think that this is a matchup that you want to see both teams win because I want to see Carmelo do well, but ultimately I want to see the Utah Jazz do well as well, and I don't bet against Russell Westbrook.
Neither do I. He's my current favorite player in the NBA.
He's your what?
He's my current favorite player in the NBA, bar none.
Yeah, I like Russell Westbrook, and I think it's interesting. When he came into the league, people thought he could ball, and the way that he plays as a point guard is the way that every point guard, that's kind of a prerequisite to play in the league. You can't just be a distributor. The John Stockton, Jason Kidd type point guard are a rarity.
No, Rajon Rondo type point guard. Rajon Rondo was that type of point guard, and you see where he came. He's gone now. Still a very talented player, but he's a distributor first, and that's not a bona fide superstar anymore.
I think Rondo was a tweener, though. I think Rondo's injuries forced him to be more of a distributor. Plus, he plays on a team with Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, so I think he had to be a distributor. It's kind of a situation that he was in Boston, and I think that when he went to the Bulls, or when he went to Sacramento or Dallas, he had more free range to score. I think he's a scoring threat, but I also think he was spoiled, playing with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, winning a championship early in his career. But I think by nature he is a herky-jerky. He and Brandon Jennings are a similar player to me.
So we'll jump to them in a second. So with OKC Utah, who do you officially got in how many games?
OKC in 5.
OKC in 5. I tend to agree with you. I got OKC, but I have them sweeping. I think Utah is a good team. I think Donovan Mitchell is a very good player, but I think they're too young to be there to challenge a team of veterans. And I think that OKC used this as a stepping stone to really start to click. Like you said, Paul George got something to prove. People tend to forget that Paul George was the competition of LeBron James in the East for a little bit. That Indiana Pacers teams led by Paul George were just the most formidable ones that some of the most formidable teams that LeBron has played against. And Paul George has went from being the undisputed star and leader of his team to accepting the role of the second in command. And at the beginning of this year, there was that awkwardness that all super teams go through. LeBron's super team went through in Miami of who takes the last shot, who is the guy officially. And Everyone knew it was Russell on this team. All the fans knew. Everyone knew it was LeBron in Miami. All the fans knew, but the players all have egos, so they need to figure that out. Now that the chips have fallen, now that Russell's 1, Paul George 2, Melo 3, and that's it, I feel like OKC is going to put it together. I feel like they're going to use the Utah series to really get their feet wet, get playoff basketball really ready, and I think that they're going to sweep. So, go ahead,
Five
Scoop.
is more than 4, but if 4 is the number, it wouldn't be far-fetched, but we both agree who the champion is or who's going to win that series. So, we're pretty much on point so far.
Yes, sir. So, next matchup, we were talking about New Orleans a little bit, mentioning Rajon Rondo. DeMarcus Cousins is not there, unfortunately, because of his injury. Anthony Davis still is. We can't call him the Brow anymore, though, because he shaved it. Why did he do that, Scoop?
No, he didn't really shave it. That was a prank.
Oh, it was a prank. Thank God. I saw that. It got me sad. Now I'm happy again. Anthony, don't you ever shave that unibrow. You do you, son. You do you. But they are going up against the Portland Trailblazers, who at one point were the hottest team in basketball, but have sizzled off a little bit. But they still got a man named Damian Lillard. They still got a man named CJ McCollum. Who do you got winning that series?
I have the Blazers, but I think that series is going to be fun to watch. You talked about Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins and Rajon Rondo. Obviously, Cousins was out, and Rondo and Anthony Davis are a pick and pop team. But I think they're going to be interesting to watch. Etuan Moore has been shooting pretty well this season for the Pelicans, but I think when I look at the overall roster of the Pelicans, they don't impress me. And they have Drew Holiday as well. They don't impress me as much as the Blazers do, and I think it's the way the Blazers got to that point. Damian Lillard is arguably one of the best point guards in the NBA and is often overlooked because everyone's impressed with Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, and more. And I think if you took a Damian Lillard and put him on a team with Cleveland and put Damian Lillard on a team like Boston, I think he'd play well. But I think it's not just Damian Lillard that has helped them. It's been the play of Yusuf Nurkic. It's been the play of CJ McCollum. It's been the play of rookie Zach Collins, who's been able to play minutes off the bench. Evan Turner has been playing well. Myers Leonard has been all right. Ed Davis, Shabazz Napier. It's been a everybody that's on that team could start on another team and play well. Wade Baldwin is coming off the bench. You have all those guys, but I just like the fact that they're just such a close-knit team, and it's a mix of young guys and vets, and it's all led by Damian, and everybody knows their role, but even Maurice Harkless play well. I just like that team, and I think that early in the season they struggled, and they found their way after the All-Star break, and I spoke with Damian Lillard in February, and he was really just excited for the second half of the season when we talked, and just talked about like the Sixers do trust in the process, but he was just calm, and I think he came in, to the second half of the season, and the Blazers were dominated, but it wasn't just him, it was CJ McCollum. Those two guys together are just a scoring machine. And I have been beating the Pelicans, but it's not because of DeMarcus Cousins, not because I think even if DeMarcus Cousins was still, I still think that the Blazers would dominate. I think I'm really a fan of their team chemistry and the fact that they get built over the last few years. So I have the Pelicans. I have the Portland Trailblazers and a sweep.
In a sweep, so Portland in 4. We agree there. I have Portland in 5. I think that New Orleans will steal a game because I think Anthony Davis is more than capable of going for 30 and 21 game, taking over, and really, just winning a game at home. I think just his pride and putting a team on his back. But, all those guys you mentioned on Portland, it's just the depth. It's just a talent issue. Portland's just a better team. And it's not a knock on Anthony Davis. He's one of the best players in the game. And like you said, even if DeMarcus was there, two of the most skilled big men, two of the most skilled players in the game, period, wouldn't be able to match up with all the depth. And, those guys need to take breaks. And when they take breaks, Portland's going to feast because they're deep. So it's definitely going to be Portland. I have Portland winning in 5, but we completely agree. Moving on to a matchup that should be a classic, and on paper, if you saw it at the beginning of this year, you would say that is a great conference finals matchup. We're getting it in the first round. Golden State Warriors limping into the first round against the San Antonio Spurs, the Kawhi Leonard-less San Antonio Spurs. Who do you got? Storylines galore.
I think it's Warriors, but I don't think it's just going to be, the Spurs laying down and letting the Spurs allowing the Warriors to take advantage of them. I haven't been impressed with LaMarcus Aldridge this season. I think that, he's definitely been the guy that has really taken the team at the perimeter position, at the post position, and really made it his. The best post presence they've had since Duncan, but it's the outside shooting, the passing, it's the rebounding. But I also like Kyle Anderson in the series, a guy that can play, young and can shoot the lights out. But ultimately, this series is a tune-up for the Warriors in the next couple rounds. And, I think Steph Curry is getting some more rest, and I also do think that guys like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson resting throughout the course of the season is going to help them for the long run in the playoffs going further. And it's crazy that it's the Spurs, but the Kawhi Leonard-less Spurs team is definitely going to be not going to take the Warriors past the first, out of the first round. It'll be interesting to watch, but I don't think it'll be as interesting as the series we talked about before. I actually think Pelicans and
Trailblazers?
Pelicans and Portland are going to be more interesting than the Warriors and Spurs in the first round.
So you got Golden State winning. How many games will it take them?
6.
Look at us. We are in sync. I say Golden State in 6 as well. I say 6 because I can't see a Greg Popovich team, like you said, rolling over. They're good. They're a very well-coached team. That system is a proven system that works. And a guy like Patty Mills steps up, and it seems every game he's making shots that keep San Antonio in. They're going to play tough. San Antonio is still a really tough place to play at home. Ultimately, Golden State, the horses are going to win out there. Kevin Durant's going to do Kevin Durant things. Draymond's going to be the glue guy. Klay Thompson's going to, seemingly quietly get his 20-plus a game because he's still a forgotten superstar. And Klay, if you're listening, I'm going to say it every podcast. Klay, Brooklyn would love you. You would be our guy. Come to Brooklyn whenever it's time. I think in 2 years you're a free agent. We should be all right. We got our picks then. Come on. Come to Brooklyn. Anyway.
I think it's going to ultimately come down to the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks for Kawhi Leonard. The Celtics are obviously the sexy choice because of the young guys, Kyrie Irving and company. But the Knicks, I've said this before, but even before the Knicks got rid of Jeff Hornacek, I've been told that Mark Jackson was the proverbial favorite, and that Kawhi Leonard would come in tow as the player and coach coming over there. But Stephen A. Smith had reported in the summer that Kawhi Leonard wanted to be traded to the Knicks, and that kind of got swept under the rug. But Kawhi Leonard and Greg Popovich are not the best of friends, and Kawhi is quiet, but NBA players do talk, and his information is all being told, by Jalen Rose and guys like Dwayne Wade. They know something, and I think that Kawhi Leonard's exit is very different than the difference in opinions that LaMarcus Aldridge and Greg Popovich had privately last season, and LaMarcus is a better man for it because he's playing lights out this season. He realized the opportunity he has, and he's feeling it. But Kawhi realizes the talent he has, and he doesn't want to be muffled or stifled. And I think Kawhi Leonard is doing what's in his best interest, and he's protecting his name and his brand and his hamstrings.
Without a doubt, and that would be definitely very interesting. And I know a lot of Knicks fans, they hear Mark Jackson and they don't want him. Mark Jackson's a vocal dude. He's controversial, but the guy can coach. Golden State's not Golden State without Mark Jackson. People don't realize that. But Mark Jackson laid that foundation, and Steve Kerr came and coached, and he's a good coach, but he coached a ready-made team. And then he got Kevin Durant, and it's much more ready-made. So people forget Mark Jackson was there. They weren't always great. He built that team. He got Steph. He got Clay. He got, I believe Draymond was also his. So it's a guy there that got the raw deal. He's gotten the raw deal a bunch of times. So if he comes to New York, and especially if he's coming in tow with Kawhi, that makes him much sexier to come there. I like David Fizdale for the Knicks. I think David Fizdale is a hell of a coach, and I think he would do very well for the Knicks just because of the current front office is a much more professional front office. David Fizdale is a very professional man. So I really think that he'd do well. But between Mark Jackson and Fizdale, especially if Mark Jackson's coming with Kawhi, you got to lean with Mark Jackson. That's just the bottom line if you're the Knicks.
And I also know the Knicks, particularly their head brass guy and Steve Mills is a Princeton guy. I know the Knicks have been interested in David Blatt for some years, but I think that the situation with David Blatt in Cleveland, kind of, players talk, like I said, and LeBron and David Blatt did not always see eye to eye, and sometimes Kyrie Irving as well. But I think those guys were respectful of him. But international championships don't mean anything in the NBA, and Kyrie was LeBron's guy, and similar to Lawrence Frank being Jason Kidd's guy, and ultimately Byron Scott being out of New Jersey at the time. But I think at the end of the day, you want a guy like Fizdale who relates to younger guys. He's a rising guy. He's an assistant with Miami when LeBron and them won championships, and was in Memphis. Didn't work out, but I think David Fizdale is a guy that can relate to a Michael Beasley, a Courtney Lee, and more. All you have to do is be a motivator and get people to buy into something. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the offseason for the Knicks.
In the offseason, me and you, Scoop, we're definitely going to do another one of these, and we'll see especially if the Knicks have a coach, we'll talk about it, because that's something I definitely want to dive into with you more of, especially because I know you'll definitely have some insider scoop about how it happened, what happened, so we're going to save a lot of that for there.
For sure.
So now we get into the fantasy fun side, which, we went in depth with our matchups. Now we get to do a little bit of the fantasy fun. We're going to predict the rest of the way. Probably shouldn't go as long, but me and you talk, and we like to talk, so we're going to talk. So your Eastern matchup, second round, was the Toronto Raptors and Cleveland Cavs. Who you got and why?
Cavs at 5. I think that the Cavs were comfortable in beating the Raptors in the regular season, and I think almost losing to the Washington Wizards in the regular season and losing to the Sixers in back-to-back gave them a dose of reality, and losing to the Knicks in the last regular season game will have them motivated in beating the shellac off the Pacers in round 1. That being said, I think that what I just said about the Sixers and the Wizards analogy will come into play in Toronto. They won't forget, and they'll be right where they need to be. Tyronn Lue has discussed health over seeding. I think sometimes being a 1 seed can give you a psychological advantage that you think you're better, and it makes you comfortable. I remember those Lakers teams when Shaq and Kobe played being a 3rd seed, but then going in and beating the Sacramento Kings in 2002.
Well, Scoop, even the Spurs, the great Spurs teams with Timmy, Parker, Ginobili, they didn't care about seeding. They just got in and they did their thing.
Exactly, and I actually think being a 4th seed is to the advantage because, if we all look at the beginning of the season, we would have thought that Cavs team would have been one, and that we never would have thought that Celtics team would be doing as well as they did before the Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward injury.
So we're going to go on to – go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to move on to your next matchup in the second round. You got Miami versus Milwaukee. That one I didn't see coming. I think that could be a hell of a matchup. Who do you got moving on?
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee making a run, the 7 seed. You talked about how disappointed. They're making it up for you here.
Yeah, Milwaukee. I think people have discussed a Cleveland or Philadelphia conference finals. I like a Milwaukee and Cleveland finals. Eastern Conference final matchup.
And how many games does it take Milwaukee to beat Miami in your eyes?
6.
Milwaukee in 6. My second round matchups, a little bit different than yours. I had Washington versus Cleveland. I ultimately have Cleveland winning in 6. I don't think it's a cakewalk. I think John Wall coming back from his injury, I think rest will do John Wall well, and just his style of game against Cleveland's holes in their defense is going to hurt them. The speed and the pace that he likes to play, I think he's going to push LeBron. But I definitely think, LeBron's LeBron, and he'll ultimately figure out a way to lead the Cleveland. Kevin Love will play a big role in dominating down low, and they're going to ultimately win in 6. My second matchup of Philly versus Milwaukee, I'm still drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm still trusting that process. I have Philly winning that in 7. I had them sweeping Miami, so they're well rested. Milwaukee played a 7-game series for me. And Milwaukee's a little tired, but they play a hell of a series. But I think Philly ultimately uses all that young energy plus that veteran experience that you talked about to win in 7 and get to the conference finals. So we're going to jump. Oh, you got something about that? You going to tell me I'm wrong?
No. Wrong. My opinion, the next man wins.
I'm recording this all down, so we're going to be able to go back and look at this too. I might even put this up on Twitter so people will know exactly what our brackets are.
There you go.
So we're going to go on to the West. Your second round matchup, number 1, you had Houston versus OKC. Whose time is it right now? Who's stepping up?
That's a good matchup. You have Harden versus his old team. And I've seen those two teams play against each other, the Thunder and Houston, often. And I'm going to tell you, I like OKC over Houston.
How many games you got in that one?
What you said?
How many games in that one do you have?
7.
A true series there. Now, what's the X factor in that? Is that just going to be Russell Westbrook with the chip on his shoulder and the way he plays, or is it going to be CP3 and Harden continuing to not be able to get it done in the playoffs?
I think it's going to come down to disappointments over the last couple of seasons, and not wanting to replicate those mistakes. I think the storyline of Paul George shifting over there for something better, Heavy Melo, Carmelo Anthony, finding his shooting stroke finally, and I think Russell Westbrook continuing to play like Russell Westbrook, and I think that is going to come down to just personnel defensively, but I ultimately think it's going to come down to coaching. Mike D'Antoni, coach of the Rockets, it's often been said that his teams are defensive-minded teams. They lost and won by shooting, and the closest that a Mike D'Antoni coach team came to the finals was a Phoenix Suns team. They ended up getting off the bench, and Amari Stoudemire got coming in and kind of having an altercation and that wrong and limiting their chances. But I don't bet against Russell Westbrook, and I think a lot of people do. But I don't think it's just Russell Westbrook. I don't think it's just Carmelo Anthony, and I don't think it's just Paul George on that team. I think a lot of times the criticism has been they have no bench, but you look at guys like Andre Robertson, you look at Ray Felton, you look at Jeremy Grant, you look at that team, and I think that those are some guys that are on that team that have been playoff tested in the past. And I just think that there is a chip on it. There is a level of must win that the Thunder have that the Houston Rockets have differently. And I'm going with the Thunder in this one.
I like it. I like it. And we're going to roll right into your second game in the second round in the West. Portland versus Golden State. Dame versus assuming Curry is back in this round. So who do you got?
I have Golden State, but I think it's going to go 7 games.
2 7-game matchups in the West. So this is just Scoop basically confirming the regular season that the West was hella tough and that it comes down to very fractional type of things to win series. Who's your X factor there for those games?
I think for Golden State, it's Kevin Durant, and I think Kevin Durant in Steph Curry's absence this season, you've seen flashes where he's taken over, which was a carryover from what he did in the finals last season, and became MVP and earned the respect of his peers. But I think the point guard play. I think Damian Lillard is going to overmatch Steph Curry, but Steph Curry doesn't have to drop 60 in order for that team to be successful. I think Klay Thompson defensively, I think that Draymond Green defensively can bully them. Portland, I think that Klay Thompson can shoot the lights out and has a longer length than C.J. McCollum and can create shots for himself off the pick and roll for Draymond and off of Steph Curry. But I think coaching is going to come down to it. And I just like Steve Kerr in this matchup and that team better that can coach itself than I do Portland. And I think this is the stop on the train that Portland gets off at, and it's going to be Golden State.
Not gonna lie, Scoop. I always like it when we agree because it makes me feel smarter when we agree on stuff. So in my second round, we had just to let you guys know, we had the same exact second round. We had Houston versus OKC, Portland versus Golden State. We were both chalk in the West. We continue because I have OKC beating Houston, but I haven't beaten them in 6, a little bit quicker. Again, a little bit of bias. Uncle Russell's my favorite player right now. He's just been unbelievable. And again, you don't bet against Russ. And I agree. I said it in the beginning. I think OKC is going to use Utah as a stepping stone, and now they're clicking. And for me, with Houston, I'll believe it when I see it, with them getting it done, and I haven't seen it. I'll believe it when I see it with CP3, and again, haven't seen it. So I really think it's OKC. I think Russell Westbrook, he's been to a finals. He knows what it's like to get to the finals. He knows the grind it takes to run all the way through the gauntlet of a conference, especially the Western Conference, to get there. Granted, he was with Durant, but now he's got Paul George. Now he's got Melo. Now he's got guys, like you said, on the bench, too. He's got a Ray Felton who is, playing at a pretty good level off the bench. So I see OKC winning that in 6. In terms of the other matchup between the Trailblazers and the Warriors, I see the Warriors in 7 as well. I think, you mentioned Klay defensively and then you backtrack, but I'm going to continue to mention Klay Thompson defensively because, yeah, he's a great three-point shooter, but a lot of people always forget that he's one of the best defensive 2s in the game. He can guard 2, he can guard 3, he can guard 1. And when you're matching him up against a C.J. McCollum, I think he's going to cause C.J. McCollum fits. Don't get me wrong, McCollum's going to score his points, but that 30, 40-point outburst that we're used to seeing from McCollum in order to pick up the slack and help Dame out, I don't think he's going to be able to do that against a guy like Klay Thompson. And, other guys coming off the bench that can be used for Golden State. It's just going to give him fits. Sean Livingston is long. He's going to probably spend some time on CJ as well as Dame. Golden State's a good defensive team. They score a lot, but they are very good defensively as well, and people don't see that. People don't see Kevin Durant's defensive prowess, and he's gotten much better, and he gets blocks at the best time in the game. So, got Golden State going in 7. OKC Golden State's the matchup for me. So, we're going to go back to the East, Scoop. Do you have anything to say about that in the West?
No, you're pretty spot on. We're agreeing and not agreeing, but we're agreeing and agreeing.
Yeah, we ain't agreeing in the East. We're agreeing in the West. But we're gonna jump back to the East. Your matchup was Cleveland versus Milwaukee. It's LeBron versus Antetokounmpo, a guy who was considered to be LeBron light for a little bit. Who do you got in that matchup, and how many games, and why?
I got Kev in 5.
Cleveland in 5. Now, is it going to be a tough 5, or is it going to be LeBron being LeBron at this point in the playoffs and kind of putting everyone in their place?
Series where people look at Giannis Antetokounmpo and say, "Wow, he's next." The same way that people looked at Durant back in like 2011 as being the next to LeBron. And I think that what's going to be special about this matchup game, I think that the Milwaukee Bucks are playing the way they were supposed to have been playing 2 years ago. They're almost going to be like that 2013 Pacers team that took on the Heat. That had a young Paul George.
Now, quickly, Scoot. Now, quickly. Now, you know LeBron's he's one of the most intelligent athletes, one of the most intelligent guys we've ever seen play the game, especially basketball-wise. But he pays attention to everything. He pays attention to social media. He watches ESPN. He knows what's going on. Do you think he gets up personally for these types of series where a guy like Antetokounmpo is being called the next LeBron? Do you think he gets up for these types of series to kind of put that kid back in his place like he did to Durant? Basically, sunned Durant the first time he saw him and said, "Listen, not yet, kid." Do you think he's going to try and do that to Antetokounmpo?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a competitor in LeBron that people don't think that he has, and people don't see enough or don't want to see it. But LeBron does that type of stuff. So sorry to interrupt you, but continue with where you were going. I don't know if I knocked off your train of thought.
No, you didn't. I think you pretty much nailed it. I think, he's a rising star. And, you don't get on 60 Minutes by just being normal. I think that style of play, that Brandon Ingram style of tall forward, that tall, lanky forward. It started with Tracy McGrady and ran over to Kevin Durant. That's the wave. And I think that Giannis and LeBron matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals is what we're going to see. And I think it's going to be capped in 5 series.
All right. Now, for me, I had Cleveland versus Philadelphia. I had the process getting there. But this is where the process ends. It's about 2 years too soon because I don't think LeBron's done yet. People talk about Tom Brady playing for forever. I don't think LeBron will stop when LeBron wants to stop, period. I have Cleveland also winning this series in 5. So we both have Cleveland getting there. I just think, again, LeBron hears the comparisons. He hears people saying Ben Simmons is LeBron without a jumper. So LeBron's going to show him what a jumper looks like, and he's going to show him what bully ball looks like. And LeBron, people see LeBron as a small forward, and Ben Simmons is a big point guard. Nah, LeBron's a point guard. Let's not get it twisted. LeBron is a point guard. LeBron is probably the best point guard in the game. So he's definitely, like we just talked about, Scoop thinks he's going to get up for Antetokounmpo if they get there. I think he's going to get up for Ben Simmons. And I think Cleveland in 5, too much LeBron, too much everyone else on the Cavs as well. And this is where you're going to see guys like Kevin Love, I think, have a big factor because I think he's also going to play for pride. And Embiid is that young stud that eats up boards and scores big points and shoots from the outside. And Kevin Love's going to look at that and go, yo, that was me. I eat up boards. I'm a three-point shooter. I can put the ball on the floor. Let's do this. So I think it's for multiple players on the Cavs that are going to look to step up. And ultimately, I think they're going to win that in 5.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah. So next one, we both have this matchup. We might have different answers. In the West, Western Conference Finals, OKC versus Golden State. Who you got?
Well, I was interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and I said that I thought it was going to be Cleveland and the Warriors in the NBA Finals, but I'm going to do something a little different. I can actually see an OKC Cleveland Cavaliers matchup in the NBA Finals.
Wow. How many games is it going to take for OKC to get past Golden State? Assuming Golden State's
7.
full strength at this point. 7?
7. Yep.
So is Uncle Russell just at the point where he's done being denied? He's probably going to lose the MVP after getting triple doubles for the year again, which, it's miraculous that there's going to be someone good enough to take the MVP away from that. But so is he just the major X factor in this? Is this just Russell Westbrook not to be denied?
In the finals?
Well, I mean, in the conference finals against Golden State.
Yeah, I think I don't think he's going to get any overdraft charges, and he's not going to go on a date and cause a decline at the restaurant. He can get his big Peter Luger steak and he's taken care of. I think he can get past the Warriors in this one. I think there are certain things about the Warriors that can be beaten, and I think that people are used to the Warriors. But that doesn't mean that they're not great at what they do. I think team chemistry is everything, but I look at a team like the Boston Celtics back in 2008 that had a veteran squad of, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Rajon Rondo as the point guard, and, Sam Cassell spelling Rajon Rondo in key points. And, I saw a team put together at the beginning of the season, and they went out and, did what they needed to do. So, I think that people don't truly appreciate the greatness that Russell Westbrook is. And I like this storyline this season, particularly because Carmelo Anthony, for many years, in that 2003 draft, you've seen guys come and go. I mean, there's no Darko Milicic going anywhere, but you've seen Chris Bosh win a championship. You've seen LeBron win multiple championships. You've seen, Dwayne Wade win multiple championships. But, when can it be Carmelo Anthony's turn? And I think this is the chance for him to show people up and, do what he's supposed to do.
No doubt at all. I love it. Now, it's interesting because, again, we agree exactly. I got OKC in 7 as well. And the way I look at it, for me, it's a lot of matchups. I don't think that OKC has matched up against Golden State in any years like they do. I don't think anyone's matched up against Golden State as well as OKC does when you really look at it. Russell against Curry. I think Russell Westbrook against Curry, who I don't think is going to be at full health. He's still going to be limping. So we gotta take that into consideration. I think he's going to be enough to hold Curry defensively, obviously not stop him completely, but hold him. Paul George matches up well against Kevin Durant in terms of defense. Paul George is a defensive stud, so I like that matchup. I think Melo's going to do his thing, and he's not afraid to body with people. People don't know that about Melo, but Melo really, really fights. And there was an interview, I think it was years ago, it had to be a few years ago now, when they asked LeBron, who do you hate playing against the most? And he flat out said, Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo's a bull. The guy, he's solid. You knock into him, he's going to knock you down. Like, that's just him. So Draymond's going to have his hands full. And then you look at shooting guard, who's going to stop Clay? Well, we already mentioned them. Andre Roberson and even Corey Brewer's on that team. They're both going to give Clay some trouble. So for me, I see its matchups. I think OKC in 7. Russell's not to be denied. Russell's going to get his revenge against Durant. And I just love the way Russell Westbrook plays. He has that chip on his shoulder. He plays like a 90s player. He hates everyone. I love it. So on to the grand finale. Me and you got the same exact matchup. Cleveland versus OKC Thunder. Who do you got?
Cleveland Cavaliers in 6.
Cleveland in 6. And you want to know something funny, Scoop? I ain't copying you. I did mine before we even got on here. Cleveland in 6 for me as well. Who's your X factor? Is it just LeBron doing LeBron things? Who's going to make this another championship for LeBron?
I think it's a mixture of things. And I think the biggest mixture is the fact that the Cavs have a supporting cast. It's Jordan Clarkson. It's George Hill. It is. We didn't talk a lot about Kevin Love, but that guy's been concussed. He's been knocked down. He's been I like kind of a war-ridden Kevin Love versus the pretty boy Kevin Love, and I think he's adjusting well chemistry-wise with LeBron in a way that he wasn't able to do with both LeBron and Kyrie. But I think the Cavs definitely are going to be shooting at a premium, but they can also play defensively down low. And I'm going to tell you something. I think in the finals, you're going to see an emergence of Tristan Thompson because he's been quiet over the last year and a half.
And he's going to need to get his mind away from things after all the things that he's been going through lately in the tabloids. This is going to be a good way for him to get his mind off of stuff going on in his personal life. Not take a shot at Tristan, because I like Tristan. Tristan's a good player, but this is going to be a good mind, take his mind off of everything.
Sure, and I think I also just think that I think when I look at the Cavs roster, even from a perspective of them being young, I like that Larry Nance Jr. Has played under or played with two Hall of Famers, two future Hall of Famers, and Kobe and LeBron. I also think that Ty Lue has something to prove. Kind of similarly to how Steve Kerr was sick last year, and then he was replaced until he was well again, and it was done the right way. I think Ty Lue and his health is something that people can ask about. You look at teams and storylines are things that you look at going into the season, or to the finals, or the playoffs. But I think that I really like the Cavs storyline, and I like the personnel they had. I mean, you look at Isaiah Thomas being traded in the offseason, coming to Cleveland for Kyrie Irving, and then you see Kyrie Irving going down, and the issues with the surgery came back to bite him in the butt. And then what happened? They make a 3-team trade with the Miami Heat and the Lakers, and Wade goes back home. Derrick Rose goes to Utah, and then it's Wade and goes to Minnesota, and then you have Jordan Clarkson, you have George Hill come in. George Hill is the defensive point guard that they needed. Kyle Korver is playing like Philadelphia Kyle Korver or Utah Kyle Korver. Every great championship team has premium shooting, and every great championship team has interior defense. And when I look at this Cavs team, they remind me in some ways of last year's Warriors team, because a lot of people question the Warriors' interior defense. Is Raja, dirty player or not, helps fill that hole. You look at LeBron having another scoring option to have that in Jordan Clarkson. Just all of these different factors, all these questions that were questions of last season that you had. The only question that I really had is, can the Cavs maintain leads, and can the Cavs be more interesting than just the last 2 minutes of a ball game? The other question I have is J.R. Smith. Can we get a solid 19 points in the game consistently?
Yeah, and one thing I like about this matchup, I think we're going to see a more physical finals, a more physical matchup than we have seen, a more 90s-style game, because number one, we're going to see triple-doubles left and right. LeBron and Russell are going to put on a show. There's no doubt in my mind. LeBron and Westbrook are just going to go and put on a show. They're going to do their thing, but also just the style of play. LeBron has that soft stigma where I don't think people understand that the guy's a grown man. He doesn't shy away from contact. He actually invites it every time he drives down a lane. He's looking to dunk over someone. No one wants to get in his way. Russell Westbrook plays the game the same way. Very physical, very tough, but I think it also trickles down. I think we talked about Paul George having something to prove. He wants to get past LeBron. Paul George has not been able to do that. He wants to get past LeBron. Melo wants to take one from LeBron. He's always played second fiddle to LeBron, so he's got something to prove. And then, like you said, you have a guy like Kevin Love, who, again, he has something to prove. He's been, he gets compared to Chris Bosh a lot, but everyone says, oh, well, he wasn't as good as Bosh as the number 3 and all. And that's unfair to him because he's a different type of player. But at the same time, he has a chip on his shoulder, and he's another guy. People forget how physical Kevin Love can be. Kevin Love was a physical player before coming to the Cavs. He had to fall into the role of a three-point shooter, but I think we're going to have to see him grind it out a little more. And you have gritty players. I agree J.R. Smith needs to be a factor. He needs to play well. He needs to play consistent. And the best J.R. Smith is when J.R. Smith is driving to the hole, when he's not falling in love with these three-point shots. I know they're a three-point shooting team, but the guy's a freak athlete. There's very few finishers at the hole as good as J.R. Smith. It's just we never get to see it because he just falls in love with the jumper. But ultimately, I think we're going to see a very physical, very chippy finals where you're going to see two teams that respect each other but end up really disliking each other towards the end of this, but have very mutual respect. Ultimately see LeBron winning. I agree with all of your issues that you see with Cleveland. Can they maintain a lead? Can they do these types of things? That's where I think a George Hill comes in. That's where I think a Kyle Korver comes in. And I think they're the main factors of when you need a big shot, when everyone's doubling LeBron, tripling LeBron, they're going to have to make a big shot. And they're veteran, the leadership that they have, the poise that they have, the experience they have, they're going to get that shot, that Ray Allen-esque shot that is going to end up ultimately winning the games.
Yep. They got an in-season makeover that's better than what they had last finals.
Yeah, without a doubt. They are a much better team than they were in the last finals. And that's not, minus Kyrie, because Kyrie is an all-world player. But you can replace an all-world player with 4 or 5 really talented guys. And that's exactly what the Cavs did. They became a more cohesive unit, and they all understand their role, and they're all playing it pretty damn well. And when they click, there's no team better than them in the NBA.
Yep.
And so with that was your NBA preview on episode 19 of the Sports Opinions Podcast. Scoop, I had lots of fun. Thank you for coming on.
Brother, you had me thinking on this evening. I'm glad we got this done, and we could talk about it for 2 months. I'm glad it's here, and I hope the people enjoy it. You got to give the people what they want.
Absolutely. And again, Scoop in his new venture is over at Basketball Society, senior columnist. He is writing all sorts of fun stuff about basketball. The man always writes fun stuff, but this is really into his complete and total forte. The man's a basketball savant when it comes in terms of knowing it. He's been around it his whole life. Go give him a look. Follow Basketball Society on Twitter. I'm pretty sure they're at Basketball Society.
Something like that.
Scoop, tell the people where they can find you. Tell them where they can find Scoopy Radio Podcast, which you are the host of, and you bring on great guests. Tell them where they can find you. Give them the rundown.
Oh, yeah. You can check out the Scoopy Radio Podcast by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app, or simply visit ScoopyRadio.com. We've had anybody from Attorney at Glory all the way to civil rights activists, Reverend Al Sharpton, to WNBA player Captain Pondexter, to Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and a myriad of other people on. Even the director of urban development, Dr. Ben Carson. We had him on. Our shows got 2 million downloads last year. As I mentioned, anywhere from Breitbart to Complex to Billboard to ESPN to The Jump. So, we're making, me and my team, DJ Maniello, making headway as a news source. And, you can follow me on Twitter at Scoopy, Instagram, Scoop_B, Snapchat, Scoop_B, and visit my info page to learn more about me. You can visit ScoopB, SCOOP, the letter B.com. And you can learn more about my merchandise as well, Scoopy Radio merchandise, and Scoopy ton of t-shirts and sweatshirts, and all through Water Apparel. So we got a lot going on. I have a good team around me, and looking to do good work during the NBA playoffs.
And that's all the man does. The man does great work. You'd be very remiss if you don't go and follow his stuff. And if you heard our podcast that we just did, you know the man knows what he's talking about. So,
and you guys can find this episode of us talking. It will be on Scoopy Radio the next day or so. So, yeah, definitely looking to see how well we do in our predictions. We could be all wrong or all right, but basketball is a fun sport we can talk about all day.
Without a doubt. And as always, I'm your host, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter at @A_Cuesta30. Follow Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. And we're on YouTube. That's where you're listening to this on. Go ahead, click subscribe if you haven't already so you can get all the great content, all the great guests that I have on weekly, and also my brand new weekly New York sports update for the New York sport fan, because that's where I reside. Again, Scoop, thank you very much.
My man.
And that is all for the Sports Opinions Podcast. Have a good one.